Anything set? So I think it's been a good month since the last time all of us chatted. So I think we're going to use this as a way to kind of get reacquainted, set the stage, discuss what's been done since last time, and then discuss next steps. So I don't know, how should we start? Marcel, do you want to?
Yeah. So I think, yeah. So I think we stopped at discussing the charter document and figured that, especially for phase one, some of the bullet points were still a little bit up for discussion, especially the one with everything should be open to the public and what are realistic workloads, what is a stable environment. And we
sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, and we can continue the discussion, but we also had two more really actionable items, which I created into GitHub issues. So what we could do is at least update on the current state of these issues and give everybody a warm reminder about the definition of a working group and how we can collaborate even between these meetings here.
Sure. So I think that one thing I want to mention that's not before we get to GitHub issues is that I think one way to address some of the concerns about everything being open is to create this cluster that we've been talking about in stages, so that we have one stage where everything is just synthetic workloads that are running. There are no security or privacy concerns. This is no real user data on it. It's all synthetic. And we mark that as stage 0. And then we view slightly more increasing realness and slightly more increasing real user workloads as additional stages on top of that. And we can incorporate that into a charter document and actually have, say we're in stage 0 now, and in a few months from now we can be in stage 1 or stage 2 or whatever else. But at least that way we're setting clear expectations on what data we're collecting, how sensitive it is, and what our timeline is for moving forward. So that's something that we can do.
Yeah, I think ultimately we should also have the documents in the GitHub repo.
Makes sense. So I can add a GitHub issue for that about creating stages, and then perhaps work towards that. Sorry, I will fix my microphone. Give me a second.
Jennifer, can you enable screen sharing for me? Then I can share just the.
Yes, I'm going to do that right now for you.
I just did it, Jen.
Oh, thank you, Michael. Perfect. You rock.
I happen to be hovering over that for no good reason.
Fantastic. Thank you.
I just want to quickly ask, do folks remember the charter document? Should we quickly go over it? Or are folks generally up to date on where we left off from last time? Maybe just in the participants window, just raise your hand if you're familiar where we left off. Or if you want a quick summary of the charter document, raise your hand. Okay.
Sorry, is the hand raised for if we want the summary or if we don't want the summary?
If you want the summary, raise your hand.
I guess everybody's struggling with Zoom. For me, I'm struggling with Zoom.
So I actually don't have a raise hand button on my screen.
Me neither. I'm trying to figure it out.
I want a worldwide decree to only use one meeting application.
Okay, Marcel, why don't we do a quick summary of the charter document just to make sure that everyone's up to date?
Yeah.
Because I know there were one or two, at least a few people who weren't here last time looking at the participants window.
Do you want to?
Well,
Do you want to give a
sure,
short
why
summary?
not? Sure. So does anyone? I think that Michael sent a link to the charter document. Basically, we're trying to address this problem that it's just hard to get real data for certain types of research, like that involving like monitoring data, or we're calling it telemetry data, so that could be traces, logs, performance counters, right? So we either, usually what we set our own homegrown environments, which isn't really realistic, or we rely on like, you know, basically publicly available data that's really hard to come by and really hard to get, and usually like never makes it out of like private companies, lawyers, and so on. So we're trying to set up a kind of a platform that's that has a pretty realistic stack of software that generates a fair amount of telemetry data, and just make it available to everyone. Initially, that's part of this working group, and then who knows afterwards. And so some of the questions we've been asking is, you know, what should be part of the stack? What are there privacy or security considerations here in releasing this data? And if so, how should we stage the deployment of the stack and the workflows running on it so that we can actually manage those security and privacy constraints? And you know, eventually, you know, what's the type of research we can do on the stack, and you know, what are the cool problems we can address? So the charter document has 3 sections. There's a problem statement, which basically just describes what I said. It has the charter, which discusses we want to build this realistic production grade environment. And then it has some goals, right? Pretty much what I said. And then we tried to start discussing phases. And we said that phase 1 is that we define deploy stack that's suitable for some set of experiments, maybe the ones that this working group is interested in running and using this cluster for. We discussed an initial starting point. There is this operate first environment that's running within, I think, Red Hat somewhere, or within the MOC. Marcel might be able to clarify.
It's
and
on the MOC.
Okay, and it's just, and right now it's running OpenShift with Kubernetes and stuff. And we wanted to know from folks what else should we be running this platform to enable their research or their work. And then how can we go about deploying that? And then the rest of it is just boilerplate stuff at the end of this document.
Yes, but boilerplate is also to be is there for a purpose. So at some point we should also define when we're done with something, right? So it's we shouldn't have this meeting just for the sake of having more meetings. These days, I think that's something that you don't want to do. And since this is a working group, I usually emphasize on the term working. So I don't want to have another presentation meeting, although I mean, presentations are great, and updates on work done is also great. So we shouldn't be sitting here and doing extreme programming and coding at the same time we're in that meeting, but we should have a regular update on actual progress being done, or if we have some interesting presentations on new stacks, software, research areas or whatnot, it should always like have a concrete counterpart in the work that we're doing here.
Right.
Good.
So I think maybe we can get started by discussing this initial phase 1. I'm not sure if that might be part of the Istio stack GitHub issue.
Yeah.
What we're interested in hearing from folks is what else are we interested in running in this cluster? in addition to what's listed in the charter document. What other types of data would they want to get? And then we can incorporate that into this first phase of deployment. So,
And I think we should have also the discussion here on this GitHub repo.
Mhm.
It's a repo yet, and we can use all sorts of GitHub features like discussion boards, and at some point we could also create a new org. I don't know. But right now it's been a little bit silent there. So everybody who likes to contribute, I really encourage to read through the issues or create new issues and create some velocity there. 2 issues of these, besides the picking a license for this repo, since this repo doesn't contain anything yet, I don't really care yet. But this one here is whether the Istio stack is enough and whether you can do research on it. That's yeah, let's have the discussion there. What's actually been done, and that's something that I should call out by the Jaeger folks over at Red Hat. We have a repository with this book info repo, which is also under the Open Infrastructure Labs org. We call it Telemetry Working Group -stacks book info repo, which consists of the Elasticsearch operator, Jaeger, and Kiali, which is a UI. Maybe, probably it's more than a UI these days, to deploy Istio and run Istio. Plus, what's Service Mesh? I thought Service Mesh is a collection of these things. Look, I'm from Red Hat and I don't know about our products.
Service Mesh is the one that really brings Istio plus a couple of other things, and Kali Operator is one part of Service Mesh.
Okay, good. So Service Mesh is the marketing name for it, and in terms of upstream, or let's say CNCF projects, we have Istio in there, and we have the Kiali UI. Plus, there's this book info stack, which is a bookshop and a traffic generator. So we could deploy this stack into this operate first environment, and we have, we're here. So Humer, that he's one of the operate first operators, as in really an operator in person. Left some links here how to get something via Argo CD deployed into this environment. So we can get started and get that onboarded. If it's valuable for the research and for you guys here in this room, in this working group. I think there's some interest from the Service Mesh folks who created this stack to get it running there. But we would need people to own the onboarding of this stack there.
I just want to quickly address a question or raise a question that's in the chat. And the question asks, how easy is it to use these tools from an R&D perspective? Is the researcher the persona for the user interface in this context? Question mark. Does whoever asked that question want to chime in and clarify that?
Hello, I asked that. Hi, I'm Stavros from Red Hat. Yeah, I'm new in this group, so actually I came today. So I'm wondering. I mean, personally, my experience with Istio wasn't, the best to set up, do stuff. So I'm just wondering if someone, from the research community tries to set up these tools on his own, how easy it would be in that case? Or maybe I'm describing something that is irrelevant, but that was my question. I'm wondering how this is going to be used as the whole stack.
I mean, research is like by definition open. So whoever has an interest in something can research on a topic. So far, the audience of this group here is, I think, more focused on the metrics and the telemetry data itself, and what can be done with it, how to scale out, scale up, how to store it, how to analyze it, big term. So I wouldn't yet see the UX part as a key focus in this area.
There is this interesting question here about like, do folks who are interested in using this cluster, do they do we just get the telemetry data to use? Do we log into the cluster to run our own experiments? I'm not sure we really scoped that out yet.
Yeah, for example, if I'm a researcher, I'm doing just some machine learning stuff, trying to create like a model or something based on this on time series data coming from telemetry, then my UX should be minimal. I don't care to how I get the data, just get the data, right? So just as a side note,
yeah. There you just want the data and you want like a complex enough workload that's been run on it to develop a meaningful model.
Yeah, the focus is on the application side and
So you might want to have access to the cluster to run your workload, or have some kind of input on what type of workloads we run on this cluster, so that you have a complex enough model to use. So Marcel, I like the book info workload. I think that we need something that looks like a microservice, even though it seems very unclear what microservices actually are. I've been told that train ticket is actually somewhat more of a complex microservice workload, so it might generate better data. And we've been looking into how to deploy that, because apparently it's more complicated than book info. So I might be able to provide an update on that in the future.
And to be honest, I don't really know how to proceed here. We can let it run for another 2 weeks and see if we had some volunteers picking up this issue. So what my team can provide is some guidance and the tools and how to get access to the cluster. And we are setting up the infrastructure to get workload there. And we can collaborate with folks on GitHub issues and PRs. But I wouldn't expect this complete stack to be magically appear in 2 weeks on the cluster without somebody actually taking the lead in it and going on and doing it. So are there any folks here right now on this call who have some cycles to spare, or teams in the near term that want to work on how to get workloads on Kubernetes clusters?
I saw a hand go up, but I can't tell if that was a hand that was up from before.
I think that's Kevin. I think he's always had his hand up. Right?
Oh, okay.
No, sorry.
I'll lower all hands. That way we'll know. So,
Right.
Marcel, I feel like I felt like I heard two different questions, and I just wanted to unpack them a tiny bit. One was, is there interest and desire for seeing this thing running in Kubernetes? And the second question was, does anybody have a resource that can focus on that to do it?
Yes.
and it feels like the first question maybe is one that we should talk about first. And it would be interesting for me to hear from the researchers about their interest in it, as well as from others.
Anyone want to go? So I can quickly chime in that like some of my students are interested in microservices, and they've been looking at things like book info and other microservice example applications. So they definitely have an interest in the book info part of this, and they could potentially help with trying to deploy stuff on here. And I'm not sure if Vasya is on the call, but we've been talking about doing stuff with streaming frameworks in my class. So potentially we could use this as a platform on which to actually deploy a streaming framework and get data from that in the context of a class project that I'm proposing for my class this semester. But if anyone would be interested in helping with that or suggesting other workloads, feel free to suggest it, like either a GitHub issue or right now or whatever.
Roger, is your class structured in a way that you look for mentors to help work with those students?
Yes. Yes,
Okay.
I'm trying desperately to get mentors, but yes.
Because I know that you have a structure like that. I think Peter has a structure like that, or Ron has a structure like that. I don't know if the other ones do, but I mention it because that may create good opportunities for some of the work that we want to get done in this group, but that the folks at Red Hat may not have, or at other companies may not have a lot of time for. But guiding a group of students is a lower time commitment. It means in general that things happen a little slower, but they do happen.
Yes.
I just wanted to put that out there for folks.
Yeah,
to think
if anyone wants to deploy a new workload on this and would like some student help, I can probably phrase it as a project in my class.
We can mentor. So my team is mentoring some of, I don't know if it's Oren, but from the BU. But that was more AI focused. So I also have a data science group working on stuff. That's on another area. But we can also mentor folks deploying like these workloads, which it's not really a data science or and it's more of an engineering effort, right? How understanding Argo, understanding Kubernetes manifests, etc. And we have the capacity to mentor folks if it's like the usual amount of time during a week. Like previously was like an hour per week, 2 hours per week.
Right. So how would that work? Should like who would propose the project? Would that be folks in this group? And then we find for Marcel, would you want to propose something that would then be mentored, or?
To be honest, I'm really straightforward there. So usually the proposals were put some random text, not random, but put some text into a university provided sheet so that it goes through the official proposal review process. And that would be just a paragraph on let's deploy this stack into a certain environment, and we can help with doing this. If this is something that you need or anybody else from the university field here needs, I can write this up. It's no problem.
Marcel, I'm happy to have you write up something for my class if you'd be interested.
Good. Now we have it recorded.
But also, if other folks have suggestions on workloads they want to run in this, like perhaps we can get students to help out a bit. So, yeah, feel free to chime in or post a GitHub issue, and we can email you to set something up.
Okay.
Yeah,
so it's a pretty quiet group today, and I can completely understand it since it's dark outside. It's the first meeting this year. We don't know where it came from. Let's continue running this. If still, I mean, we can still do a survey on how many people currently have access to the GitHub repo. And then, Jennifer, maybe we do a friendly reminder on that we need to collaborate there. We can, I don't know if it makes sense to put the charter document on GitHub yet. We can still have that in Google Docs.
Yeah, if anybody on this call hasn't provided their GitHub handle, you can drop it into the charter. There's a section a couple pages down. I'm going to add page numbers in here. Or just send it to me through private chat and I'll add it to the list. That way we can get you on there.
Yeah.
Okay. So maybe for next time, we should give folks homework, and the homework should be, what else would you like on this cluster? How much would you be able to help to deploy it? And then we can all just go around the meeting to discuss people's needs and what they could help with.
Yep.
Sound good? Cool.
That sounds good. And best would be to create this as a reply to one of the existing issues or as a new issue, I think.
Okay. So that's homework for everyone. And I just want to quickly ask, does anyone have any questions or concerns or any suggestions moving forward? This is your chance to say anything you want. All right, I guess not. This is like my class, man.
It's a very tough crowd.
Yeah.
As Jen just said to me.
So Roger and Marcel, to summarize, we're gonna send an email out to folks reminding them to get GitHub handles to me. We can get folks added with access. You had some questions that we'll send out as kind of homework. Once folks are in there, they can start doing some of that homework. And the other call out there is for involvement in the class as potential mentors, projects, kind of keeping that on people's horizon.
Yeah.
Those kind of the three big things right now.
I think so. Yeah, that sounds right.
Okay, so we'll send that email. The four of us, you, Raja, Marcel, Michael, and I can regroup on the email that we'll send to folks to recap that. If anything else comes up, perfect.
Yes. And generally think about how your involvement and hands-on involvement, not necessarily via your own hands, but maybe via your group's hands, would be in this working group. If it's because in the end, we only can get things done if we actually do things. So. Cool.
All right. If there are no more questions or comments, I think we can just end.
Yeah.
So
I think it was still good to have
it.
it. Yes.
We will plan on meeting in 2 weeks then, and just assume that we'll meet every 2 weeks on schedule unless we send an email canceling it. That will be the cadence for convening the group.
Yes.
Cool. All right.
Yes.
I think we can officially end the meeting. So we'll see everyone in 2 weeks then.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.